for me, the reason why I write is to show other people that they're not alone. So if I can be transparent about my reality and about my struggles, hopefully some little girl that went through what I went through knows that she's not the only one, that she's not alone.
Welcome to QUIERO, a show about Latinx who want it all. I'm your host, Priscilla Garcia-Jacquier.
Our guest today is Paola Lázaro. She was a Tow Playwright-in-Residence at the Atlantic Theatre Company. In 2015, she was nominated for a Drama Desk Award for her role in To the Bone. Her plays include There's Always a Hudson and Tell Hector I Miss Him.
I remember when I was 11 years old, I had this drama teacher, this is back in Puerto Rico, and she knew that I wanted to be an actor, and she said to me, I said to her, I want to be an actor. And she said, you'll never be an actor. You'll never be much of anything because you don't have any discipline. And I was 11 years old. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart completely. But I have examples of people who have moved forward after people have put them down in my family. Like my mother, when she was in high school, she wanted to go and study architecture, but a teacher, we went to the same high school. Amazing. You know, Hispanics, Hispanic people and whatever.
Like so, legacy, continuation.
Yeah, like whatever. So over it. My kids are not going there, I'm just saying, if I ever have them. But, so my mother was in high school and this guidance counselor told her, like, you shouldn't study architecture because you're not good at math. So she let that get to her. And so she decided to study interior design. And then one day when she was like, I think 40-something, we were having dinner at home. I have two brothers, they're twins, and they're older than me. So we're all having dinner at home, you know, the tension of the household and, like, you know, like, whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to get into that right now. Perhaps later.
I'll bring it back.
But, yeah, bring it back to that. But, you know, like, the anger, like, teenage boys, all this shit and whatever. And my mom goes, like, oh, find out who's taking you to school tomorrow. And Paola, who's picking you up at soccer practice, and Gawi, who's picking you up after your meeting, qué sé yo. And we're like, what? You are? Mm. And she's like, no, I'm starting architecture school tomorrow. So from now on, you guys figure out, for the next 4 years, you guys figure out who's going to take you places. We're like, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. She was like, yep. She just kept eating. And I was like, oh, okay.
I'm just gonna throw this down.
And so she fucking did. And she got
great.
her degree in architecture, and we barely saw her for like those 4 years because she would stay in school till like 6 a.m. Yeah. Like, because architecture school is hardcore. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have any friends that have been in architecture school, but like, but it's hardcore. And
did you know that she had it in her?
I knew she had it in her, and you know, she had lost a bunch of weight, so was able to like. Because she was big and back in the day, and then she did that to be able to have the stamina to like achieve her dream. And so similarly, my father, a couple years later, said like, "Oh, I'm starting law school." We're like, "Oh, okay, cool."
Because he always wanted,
yeah. Because he always wanted to study law. So I have that example of people who have pushed beyond what other people have said they can do, and I'm forever thankful for that, and I want to encourage everybody to push beyond what has been said for us.
Did that have a big part? Like, what happened in Puerto Rico that I'm gonna go to New York?
I wanted to write, and I wanted to act, and I wanted to.
This was forever.
When I was a kid, yeah. It all started. I used to write poetry when I was a kid.
Okay.
And then my mother, when we had like family dinners, and we would invite my grandma and whatever, she would make me read the poetry in front of the family.
So Hispanic. I mean, just like the most like.
It's like,
show them what you can do. Yeah. Look at my child.
So she would make me read this, but I distinctly remember, the moment I realized what story was, and like, not that I know, whatever. Stories change and whatever. Fucking structure.
Oh, girl.
Whatever. I think we've gotten too intellectual about all this shit. Whatever. Anyway, but there was this song that my dad used to play all the time for me, and it was like the salsa song, but it was based on this like Spanish song, and it was about this bullfighter I remember like that song was like when I realized, oh, you can tell a story in like a certain frame, you know? You know, and I knew that, you know, I have ADHD or whatever the fuck that means.
I once had a therapist. I had a therapist in fucking high school because I had to. It was per contract. Very sane person.
No, yeah.
And she was like, I think you have, I'd like to call it very intellectual ADHD. I was like, what does that mean, bitch? Like, that just means I like think a lot and like fast? Like, what are you talking about?
Did they give you pills?
She really wanted to. I didn't take her up on it.
I'm a pharma kid.
You're a pharma kid?
Yeah.
It's funny.
You
my
know?
parents are both doctors, and
Total
they went the
pharma
opposite
kid.
way.
To still take medication. I recently, like the last year, stopped taking like methylphenidate, which is for like ADHD and all that shit.
How do you feel?
I feel great. It's hard as fuck for me to concentrate. Pero like whatever, I get what I need to get done. I was gonna say something about. Wait, what were we talking about?
What brought you to New York?
Oh yeah. So then I was like, oh, exactly. So I want to do something. I used to perform this like 10-minute monologue, whatever. Do you know what Forensics League is? No. Basically, it's like a speech league. And I was like the president for like a year in my high school. And basically, you either like chose original comedy or drama or like speeches and whatever. So I chose original comedy, and I just wrote this piece, and I would perform it and whatever. And that's when I was like, oh, you know, I'm into this. And I was like, I want to study something that has to do with this. And I wanted to go to Mexico. Because I was at a point in my life where I was like anti-United States.
Why?
Because
PR is complicated.
Yeah, because Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States. And so I went through a phase of like, you know, we have been colonized for too long. I want to be with Hispanic people. I wanted to study film in Mexico. And my mother was like, we don't know anybody over there. And I was like, so? She was like, no, we don't. And I was 17, you know? I was like, okay, New York it is.
Fine.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why I came here, and I applied to schools, and I went to SUNY Purchase.
For your bachelor's?
Yeah, in dramatic writing. And that was crazy.
Why did you go to school for writing and not acting? If that was kind of also in your system.
I don't know. But I loved writing.
Yeah.
I loved writing. I was like, I used to sit around writing poetry all the time in a fucking corner, whatever. It was a school, like. And you know what it is? I think I had auditioned for that drama teacher that said that thing to me. I was like, peace. But they did a production of West Side Story.
In Puerto Rico?
Yeah, in my all-girls school.
Catholic school.
Yeah. And so she was casting it, of course, teacher. I send you the best. And I set the bar low. I was like, you know, there's mad like Hispanic girls, 575 of them, Puerto Rican women in the school. Shit. So I was like, let me just try out for this one character that has like 2 lines in the whole West Side Story, the whole story of it. This character has 2 lines. I was like, let me just do that. Character's named Anybody. Literally. I'm not playing games. 2 lines. One of them being like, wait up, boys! Because she's the only girl in the Jets. So I was like,
I can do this.
I was like, you know, I'm kind of a tomboy. I had short hair back then. I was like, she knows I want to be an actor. Can't I just be anybody? So I came in full force. Wait up, boys! And I didn't get it. And she knew that I was one of the 575 women, the only one that wanted to be an actor. And she said no. And I was like, oh, wow. You just had to have me in the corner and just say, wait up, boys. And just say, G, Officer Krupke. That's it. And I didn't get it. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. Someday I'll do it, man.
The older you get and the more shit you start doing, the more naysayers you get. I went to school for directing, but we had to take acting class, and I had an acting teacher there. And at the end of the semester, you know, you had to have like a conference, and she brought me into her office, and she was like, you know, I just don't, and again, like, I don't want to be a fucking actor. I've never said I wanted to be an actor. And she looks at me, Paola, and she's like, I just don't think you have the drive to be in this industry. And
why do people have to say that?
if my drive is the thing that ever gets questioned, I'm like, you're not seeing me. Like, I remember that really fucking taught me something about, like, before I make huge claims like that about someone's, humanity, I need to check myself.
When I got that told that I was going to
be anybody. Literally, right?
I was 11 years old. I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So and then you apply to Columbia.
Yeah, I was really depressed. I tend to get depressed sometimes. I've gotten a lot better at managing it in the past.
Is that something that was that okay when you were growing up? Did you talk to your parents about it? Did you have a dialogue? Like, did you feel shame for
No, we talked about it. I come from a long line of mentally ill people.
I do too. I really, I'm very familiar with it.
I come from a long line of, people with schizophrenia and, bipolar disorder, depression, alcoholics, and, all of these people have been lovely people, but deeply, flawed and hurt and, with a lot of pain. My brother's a neuroscientist, and lawyer, and he's brilliant. He just broke, for many years he was asked, he's 35. They're 35, my brothers. And for many years he was asked, why did you get into neuroscience? And and he would always, to quote him, he would always say some bullshit reason. And then finally, the other day, he just wrote this paper. And, he gets published in, National Institute of Mental, whatever the fuck, and all these things, right? And finally he said, I'm going to come out and say that the reason why I do this is because my family, is because of me, and I want to show the world that people with mental disorder can succeed. Yeah. And that the stigma needs to stop, and that people need to get help. I
also come from a long line of mental illness, and it's amazing because my father's a neurosurgeon, my mom's a neurologist.
Gotcha.
And
is that how they met?
That's how they met. Yeah, they met in France in med school, and the macho stereotype exists because my father exists. You know what I mean? That's how strongly I feel about that with him. But it's amazing the tools that his own science and his own training has been able to give him to soften his experience. All his children. I mean, I don't want to. We've all had to deal with it in one way or another, and it's been amazing to me that he personally can't necessarily get there, but his science can get him there. Yeah. He can understand me because of his training, and then he can understand the rest of our family because of his training. But it's hard. It just doesn't. I'm really happy to hear that. It's been tough in the community.
Absolutely, and I think as Latinos and as not just Latinos, but many communities have trouble really talking about this type of because we don't want to believe that it's real, and we don't want to.
Yeah, and also I was in rehab for eating disorders, and it's something that I've been struggling with for the last 15 years of my life. Right, most of my life has involved them rather than not.
Yeah,
and the aspect is that's a white girl's disease, or that happens to only the privileged or whatever,
or to only women.
Or to only women.
Actually, happens to men and.
Yeah, so
of all races, and
I'm happy to hear that he's a part of that.
Yeah, no, he really is pushing that.
So you're in a dark place and you apply to Columbia.
I'm in a deep dark place. I'm like, God, I want to fucking die. I'm like either I'm going to cooking school. I love cooking. I was like, either I'm going to cooking school. I'm going to continue with this bullshit. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a community. I didn't have a family.
You went through your bachelor's?
No.
There wasn't, yeah.
I mean, I had some friends. I had really good friends, that I'm still friends with, but, a community for my work, negativo. And then I didn't apply to cooking school, and I just applied to, a bunch of grad schools for writing. And then I got into some of them, and, I went around, and I was like, where do I want to go? And I was like, Chuck Mee, who ran the program at Columbia, I had seen a play of his called Iphigenia 2.0 years ago, and Chuck Me is super political. And I, at the time, was writing a lot about colonialism and how that affects interpersonal relationships. And so I interviewed with him, and I was like, that's my man right there.
Yeah. And then Gert just came into your life.
Yeah, Stephen L. Gergis. At the last year of Columbia, I had to pick a mentor. I was depressed again. Whatever.
No, but like, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean? Do you know yourself in that space?
Oh, mano, yeah. I felt it the other day.
Yeah.
But now I have tools. Like, for example, I hang out with a lot of people who are in AA. I'm not.
I'm in AA.
You're in AA?
Yeah.
Perfect. Congrats. and I love my AA crew. And someday I probably join.
That day is not today.
Not today, but soon. But I've gotten tools from people. You know, when I was growing up, I didn't know what AA was, and I didn't have a concept of all of these groups. I have tools now. For example, when I'm starting to go to that dark place, like I do this thing called HALT. You know, which is my friend Frank taught me. So much for Anonymous, right? Hey Frank, what's up? He tells everybody, whatever. But you know, so I go through those letters. So it's like never get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So the other day, after my reading, I was just like, the next day, and I had this big audition and all this stuff, and my parents were in the living room in my house, and I was like, porque yo tengo ganas de llorar. Like I was like, why do I feel like crying?
Yeah. And
they were like, cause you're tired. And I was like, y'all are so right. But I was going there inside, and I hate that place. No, knock on wood. Where's the wood?
Yeah.
Coño.
Yeah.
Por favor, please. I hate that place. I hate who I become. It's there, and I use it for my work when I have to go there. But, like, please don't make me live there any longer, you know? So now I have tools where I'm like, you know, I used to be very, express my anger very, like, violently, not towards another person, but towards myself.
Yes.
And towards what was around me. Never to anybody else. It's just not in me. But,
and that feeling is fucking scary. Like,
it's terrible. It's terrible. Like,
only felt that towards another person very few times in my life, but like that thing that arises when you're like, I'm about to push you down the motherfucking stairs and not care for a second, that terrifies me. I don't know what to do with it.
Because it's like blind. It's like you don't care.
Yeah.
Like, but the same thing that feeling I do with myself, you know, or I did with myself. But I have gained control of those impulses and know that, you know, for example, in like relationships, that I can't go there. Like, I can't express my anger like that, and I can't talk to somebody in a certain way. And I grew up with that. I grew up with like anger and punching walls and
expressing without necessarily understanding, right? Like that was a big thing in my house. It was like, you can
nobody
express.
talked about it.
Yeah, but we don't talk about it, right? I'm talking about it because it's very American.
Sorry, Pops and my brother, but Dad and my brother beat the shit out of each other last night, and we all had to fucking run to the fucking backyard because they were beating each other up like they were strangers. And like the next day, we all have to go to school, and nobody talks about it. Then that's the tension I was talking about at dinner. Like, you know, two people who hate each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and this not hate each other, love each other.
Yeah.
They're exactly the same person.
Yeah.
But like this anger, and like, you know, and I had anger too, and everybody was depressed, and you know, this one wasn't showering, and that one like refused to do this, and like
El otro no comía.
Yeah, and it was like, but we didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And like, you know, now I see my brothers raising their children and not hitting them. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, like my brother doesn't hit my nephew Diego, you know, who's crazy.
Right.
He's just like us. You know?
Right.
He's just like his father.
Yeah.
He's awesome. Diego's amazing. I'm gonna see him today. I'm very excited about that. But he's like, you know, and but they don't hit him.
Right.
They don't hit him. And I'm just like always like, wow, I grew up with that.
Right.
And I don't think it's just in Hispanic communities, you know.
No.
But that's the experience that I have, you know. I'll go back to Puerto Rico and I'll see, like, parents hitting their kids in the mall, you know?
Yep.
And, like, hitting them pretty
Yep.
pretty hard.
Yep.
Some other parents don't, like, but, like, older generations, like,
Yep.
absolutely. It
Yep.
seemed like some kids get smacked like bogey.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, fuck.
So you choose Gurgis as your mentor. He comes
Yes.
into your life. You guys get very close very quickly.
Yeah, he really saved my life, you know? I was in a really dark place, and I remember I didn't have Facebook at the time. You know, you're in a dark place where you're like,
Wait.
when you like go back in and then go back out, and you go back in and go back out, like,
Can't deal with this right now.
you know, like, whatever, it's fine. So I didn't have it, and I had met him, and I had asked him, I was like, you know, a year from now I'm gonna need a mentor, and he was like, yeah, and he gave me like his email, and I never emailed him. So, well, that was earlier. Anyway, that was later on. But so then I'm crying in the stinky cheese section of the grocery store. I cry in front of everyone. I feel like,
Depressed as fuck.
yeah. At least I was next to the good cheese,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm crying. I get this text message, and the deadline for choosing a mentor had passed, and like I didn't have one, and I was like, "Fuck y'all, I don't give a fuck." Whatever. And so then I get this text, and Tiffany Vega, she goes, "Did you meet Gurgis outside the 92Y?" And I'm like, "Yeah." What's going on? She's like, "He's looking for you on Facebook. He has an opportunity for you." And I was like, he's confused. Like, he didn't even fucking know me. What the fuck is she talking about? And so I go home, and she's like, "Contact him." And I'm like, oh, God. So I go, like, I email him, and I'm like, hey, I heard that maybe you might be looking for me. I don't have Facebook. I don't know. Maybe I'm the wrong person, whatever. And he's like, "No, hey, what's up? I have an opportunity for you. Like, at Labyrinth, we do this summer intensive, and like, I want you to be one of the students, and like, it's a week, in Connecticut." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, cool." And then, from going at that point, my depression showed itself by me sleeping like probably like 20 hours a day, because I didn't want to live. So my way to avoid living, and I literally was figuring out how to kill myself without, like, I was gonna say without hurting my family, but it was gonna hurt my family anyway. But I was trying to figure out the ways that I could off myself from the world that would hurt the least to my family. I was like, I'm not gonna shoot myself in the head. Like, that's OD. Like, that's too much, because then the mess and all these things. And I was like, maybe I can take some. I was literally figuring out the ways that I could like say goodbye. And then this man gives me this opportunity, and from sleeping 20 hours a day and living 4, I went that week. I remember I was so nervous that I was just getting high in the back and like, you know, always getting stone quiet. Like, I used to walk like this, like whatever, like depressed and whatever, feeling ugly and all this shit and terrible. And from sleeping 20 hours a day that week, in total, I think I slept like 5 hours. I was just like,
Isn't that a fucking
what?
miracle? That's a miracle,
I
right? It's. I try. I get in that place a lot too, and it's like, it's hard to communicate when you're like, it's not necessarily that I also want to kill myself right now. I just don't want to be alive. Like, how do I explain that feeling? Yeah. Like, Eric, my boyfriend, has never. It's just not something that he's ever encountered, like, in himself and his family, and bless him, right? But now it's like, it also changes. It has the ability to turn around, and not like that you're cured. It's just that, like, all of a sudden you're not in it anymore. Yeah. And that's a fucking miracle. You know? Or
like literally, like, I feel bad, go to the gym.
Yeah.
Go to the gym. Just go to the gym. It's not about like bikini body bullshit, all this fucking shit. It's like, just go.
Yeah.
Just go, talk to somebody.
I have a close family member at the moment who's kind of going through it. And we're trying to figure out whether or not they're gonna be put back in a place, like a joint. And I was telling Eric about it, and Eric was like, well, maybe this will pass, you know, whatever. And I was like, It doesn't work that way, dude. Like, it's not.
I mean,
You just have to start a dialogue. Like, that's the other thing that AA has taught me is, like, you start a dialogue with it. You say, I know this is a part of me, not saying this isn't a part of me, right? Or, like, I'm going to conquer this. It's just like, we're in dialogue here. And sometimes it comes and visits, and sometimes it goes, and sometimes longer.
Why did you decide, if I may ask,
to
join
AA? Because I had acknowledged, I was bulimic for 10 years. And I had acknowledged my bulimia as not only a mental health disorder, but also an addiction. Like, I had become addicted to it, and I had, like, kind of, and I had retrained my brain to do that. And I knew, like, my gut is strong. And I always knew the moment that alcohol came into play, into my life, like, I knew I could hear it every time I drank. A glass, 2 glasses, period. Like, even if it was just like half a glass, I could hear it. I knew that it would get there, and that I didn't want to take another 10 years to figure that out. So for me, it's not that I go back and look at, like, where I was. I was in a dark place, like, emotionally, mentally, like, I was fucking everything up. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, whether people around me, and it doesn't take, there's a false image that you have to lose your job, your house, your marriage. Like, it wasn't that. Everything was perfectly intact, but I was losing it. Like, I knew I was losing it, and I knew that, like, if this keeps going, I won't be able to, like, hold everything. I just won't.
We have examples of people who had everything that have died in these circumstances, and they had everything.
And for me, it was more like thinking 10 years ahead and knowing that at 35, I wouldn't be where I wanted to be if I kept going, which would then lead me to probably suicide.
Yeah, which door?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, if I'm at 35 and I didn't do what I wanted to do, as that being the pillar, one of the biggest pillars of who I am as a person, I just knew. Yeah. So, I tried many times, and this is like, I'm like 6 months at the moment. Gotcha. And it's been my longest stint this far.
Gotcha. And how do you feel?
I feel like everything is possible. Ooh. Do you know what I mean? I feel I'm no longer overwhelmed by, like, shit still happens, depression still visits me, I still want to die. But it doesn't stay as long. Like, I can acknowledge that emotions can come in, and I don't, like, sit in them as long. And the comeback is faster.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The tools, man. The tools. Feelings are not facts. I just get all these, like, tools from all my friends. I'm like,
it's an amazing, it's an amazing thing.
And I've been, again, I didn't know about OA and all this stuff, and I've, through these friendships, that I've learned about these things, and, like, I've exhorted my family. I mean, I need to show them more what, OA and all that stuff. And, like, I was like, what? You can go and talk about this with people?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. What? And sexual abuse, like, survivors and all. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing.
It saves lives. It really saves lives. So you go to Labyrinth, these people save your life. They come into your life like angels.
Absolutely. I would not be where I am, and I would not have this smile on my face. I would not be talking to you. I would not be this joyful. I had, like, opaqué mi luz, like, I had just, like, hidden my light, From there, people pushed me to continue because I found a community. Mm-hmm. I read some of my work, because I remember when in grad school I read one of my plays, and this kid comes up, fuck academia. First of all, fuck academia. Fuck that shit. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I had to do it because I had to do it. Whatever. Fuck that shit, though.
You mean go to school, you had to do it?
I had to do it because I knew that if I didn't, I would just be in Puerto Rico, working at an advertising agency, selling Clorox and products that people don't need, with little fucking lines, like witty lines. Not that there's anything wrong with being a copywriter, but I knew that if I didn't go to school, that I would do that, and that I would get married immediately, and then get divorced the next year, and then find out after I signed the divorce papers that I'm fucking pregnant with the guy's baby, So I already had that. I was like, oh, that's how it's gonna go. So I had to. I had to do it. Yeah. So I remember I read my part of my thesis at Columbia, and this kid raises his hand. Send you the best, bro. Raises his hand and goes, after we read it, he's like, I don't think this is a play. I think this is a cry out for help. You should get some help. And I was like,
a motherfucker.
I was like,
motherfucker.
Cool. Because it was a play about rape and all this shit and like going back to life after rape and all this stuff, and how do you get back into reality and like society after something like that happens. And he was like, you should get some help. And I was like, all right. And I remember it really like,
where, dude?
I already got help.
Yeah.
But anyway, I remember that affecting me. And then thinking like, whether or not this is right, I was like, a place should be a cry for help. It should be. For me, the reason why I write is to show other people that they're not alone. So if I can be transparent about my reality and about my struggles, hopefully some little girl that went through what I went through knows that she's not the only one, that she's not alone. And perhaps she can pick up that play and like read it and you know, have a catharsis or some sort of, I'm not a fucking savior, I'm not saying that. But my whole point for creating is to show other people that they're not alone. Which is what's beautiful about you, which is what you're doing too. Being transparent and showing other people that it's okay to talk about these things.
How I survive, right? Like that's just become the thing. If I can't be honest with you, I'm never gonna be honest with myself.
No, and then I'm not gonna heal, and then nobody else is gonna heal, because we're gonna keep doing that thing of like, oh, you know, y'all beat the shit out of each other last night, but let's go to school at 6 a.m, and let's
I think, you know, the most interesting word when people talk about the show or the shit I write or the shit that I'm willing to share, it's always like, that's so brave, and I'm always like, it doesn't feel that way. It just feels like I have to do it. Like I have to. I remember, I my first play was something like horrible that happened to me, and I had a conversation with an older gentleman who was like, don't have that be your coming out play. That can't be your first go. And I was like, dude, if that's not it, then what the fuck am I doing?
And then you sometimes go to the theater and you see these plays that don't have an inch of truth.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and I'm not hating on anybody at all. Like, I support everybody's work. But like, people are bullshitting, you know, like, you know.
And it's tricky because they get away with it, right? Like sometimes there's a way to talk about the thing without feeling the thing.
But of course.
That, you know, writing is horrible for me because you
terrible.
Have
writing
to,
is disgusting.
Go there and you have to, like,
writing is disgusting. Let it be known.
Awful.
Disclaimer. Disclaimer. Everybody fucking.
Yeah.
I hate
of course. So. Okay, and then I what is the transition from being at Labyrinth and then tell Hector I miss him and like your world opened up between that space, right?
Absolutely. I just, you know, Steven pushed me, and like, you know, Steven deals with his own demons, and like,
and he could recognize them in you.
Exactly. And I remember for the emerging writers group at the Public, I was like, the deadline was like at 12 a.m. that day. And at that point, I was living at Steven's house because I didn't have a place to live for a month. And he was like, you can definitely stay there. And I stayed there for a month. And I remember being like, that day, being like, bro, buddy, like, the deadline for this thing is tonight. I'm just going to say fuck it. And he was like, the fuck did you say to me? And I was like, nah, just fuck it. He's like, get in that fucking room right now, and I don't want to see your fucking face until you finish that fucking application. I was like, I can't. He's like, hold up, I don't give a fuck if you, like, just get into the fucking room. And I was like, and then I was like, wrote this whatever the fuck they asked for, and I sent it, and I got in, and I was like, the fuck? At last fucking minute, I was like, what the fuck?
That's like God. That's what
and
I know.
I was like,
fuck,
let's do this shit. Now I better work. And that's when I started developing Tell Hector I Miss Him over the 2-year program at the Public, which was fantastic. And then we did a production at the LatinX, and that was really fun and really cool. And it was like, you know, 11 Hispanic people on stage. which was exciting for me. And I had a Hispanic director, David Mendizábal, who I love very much. And we were two young cats, you know, trying to tackle a 12-character play about a whole community.
What's the next step for you?
What's the next step for me? I'm trying to get this play produced. I'm not trying. I'm getting this play produced.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. That's
you
what
know,
I'm talking about.
And if someone,
that's the thing I'm talking about. It's so fucking awesome.
I'm getting this play produced, and I'm gonna do a movie of it. And I don't know where we're doing it, but it's happening anyway. And what else? I'm writing a one-woman show which is probably 2 characters, so it doesn't make any sense that I just said that. I have a commission with Audible.com.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, they're commissioning playwrights now, and I'm writing about... Oh, God, am I going to say this? It's so personal. The fact that I have trouble having orgasms with other people, and I can basically only have it by myself, and where that comes from in my ancestry. And so I'm going back in time and figuring out what happened. And I'm talking to neuroscientists about what happens in the brain with an orgasm and what does it mean. I'm talking to sex therapists, so it's a whole conversation, and that's going to be exciting, and hopefully it'll lead to a healthier conversation about sexuality and
also maybe a healthier conversation with yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I sure as hope so. So basically that's what's next, and I'm going to be acting in a play soon. I don't even know if I can say what it is yet, but I'm excited about that.
Good.
And what else? I have a residency at the Public for 2 years, a playwriting residency now. It's just started in January. And I'm writing a piece with Sangu Jakam. Do you know Sangu?
I don't know, no, but
so we're working on something together, and I'm writing a musical, and with this band, Hooray for the Riff Raff.
Do you feel, to me, you've become a part of, like, the fabric of New York playwrights. Like, I see, you know what I mean? It's like, do you feel like that?
I remember the moment I felt like I cried a lot after my play was done, after To Hydra and Miss Him. I was exhausted, and I was just depressed and, you know, thankful, obviously. But I remember Neil Pepe, who's the artistic director of LatinX, had lunch with me, and I was just crying and he had just directed something, and he's like, and the reviews had come out the night before, and he's like, listen, I just directed something and I got slammed by everybody, and I'm here eating, and you know what I'm saying? What's next? And he's like, and I'm like, yeah, and he's like, welcome to the boxing ring. And he was like, you were on the side of the boxing ring, now you're in the boxing ring. You were training for the boxing ring. Take the punches. Who are you gonna listen to? The people who support you or the people who don't? He's like, welcome to the boxing ring.